We're snapping, we're tackling, we're potting here on Snap Tackle Pod. It's in the title, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm Mick Schaefer of KSHB 41. He is Dion Clisseau of Preps KC. The best you've ever looked, Dion. This is the best you've ever looked with the Mill Valley cap.
Mill Valley hat for their championship in Bishop Miege. If I had a hat, I would.
Oh, there we go. Come on, John Holmes.
I would wear it. I wore the St. James hat at least a couple times the last couple of years when they won. And now I had received the St. James hat long before they'd won state champ. They don't use that logo anymore. I love it, the SGA interlocking. But no, great weekend last weekend. I know Lee Summit North and Garner Ridge came up short in overtime. I can't remember the last time we've had 2 overtime state championship games.
Yeah, but in the biggest classes too.
Yeah, biggest classes too, and it's one of those things that where they both did a great job. Both had great seasons, and it's a situation where so close they can look back and see things that didn't happen their way. But they really got things going, and a great weekend of football. And we still have 2 games left this weekend. We have
we can get 4 titles. We're so close to having 4 titles last weekend, and we'll talk about those overtime games. But a chance to get 2 more this week, and we'll talk about those as we look ahead. Let's look back. We'll start with the hat on your head right here, and the logo in my heart, I guess.
You're not logoed up. You're at work today, so that's why you're not logoed up.
That's right. That's right. Been a busy day. But yeah, Mill Valley gets it done by the exact same score over the exact same team from a year ago, over Mays, 28-14 over Avery Johnson and Mays, and it kind of went probably like both you and I would have predicted, in that, like, okay, Mays going to break through. They're that good offensively and get a couple touchdowns, but that's it. All you're going to get with Mill Valley. And once Mill Valley got to 28, it was almost like, okay, it's over at this point.
And when I did their radio show, I was talking with Ryan Wallace, who's Go Power Cat. He's and I said there for about a quarter, I was kind of like, where's this stud kid, best quarterback ever to come out of Kansas? He doesn't look like it right now.
Well, and look, he's a great quarterback, but I know this is the best team sport there is. There's 21 other guys out there, right?
But the point for both of them is that Mill Valley's defense made him look ordinary for about a quarter and a half. Yeah. And then he looked really good and kept Mays in that game for the next couple quarters. And then eventually, your offense looked like they played mad there for about 2 quarters and jumped out.
It's funny. It was about the last, about 3 minutes of the first half, and the first 3 or 4 of the second half, they scored 3 touchdowns. The game was won right there. Yeah. And Hayden Jay threw 3 touchdown passes in that small span of time, 7-8 minutes of game clock. And that was it. And it was kind of poetic justice for Hayden, a guy who kind of handed off most of the playoffs and a lot of the season, because that's all they had to do. It didn't play a lot of second halves because they had 8 or 9 running clocks. He's able to come out and star in that championship game, throwing 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, no, it was impressive. And look, I'm not down on Avery Johnson. What I saw from that point on, he willed that team to get to where they were to be able to be competitive there. Even though Mill Valley pulled away, he's a heck of a quarterback, and I'm looking forward to seeing that kid play on the next level. And I think, I don't know if he'll be starting next year. I think Missouri still has that home and home with K-State, so I don't know if I'll get to see him play my team. But
you never know. I mean,
you never know.
You never know who's all coming back, who's staying. I think he's staying in college now forever. But if Will Howard at least will be back, and he's had a great season for K-State, who's still going strong. So things looking up for the Wildcats, by the way. But for Mill Valley, I mean, it's 4 in a row, right? Yeah. At the 5A level, nobody had ever done that in Kansas. 4 in a row at 5A. As far as Kansas City goes,
Hutch bumped up in their run.
Bumped up, right? And then 3 in a row by Shawnee Mission North to start the first 3 state championships with Shawnee Mission North. And 5A was the highest class. So that's what they broke. They broke that record. And it looks like it's going to keep going over there in Western Shawnee. Where do they fit in kind of the history of Kansas City teams? I kind of liken them to like those turn of the century Olathe North teams that we saw under Gene Weir.
Yeah, pretty similar, I think. And we got to see where the run ends. I mean, it's kind of like with Miege, they had the 6 in a row, took 2 years off, and now they're back with another one. And when you start taking a solid decade and looking at it, and you've won 6, 7, maybe 8 titles, that's more Lawrence-like. I apologize to Olathe North fans. I don't remember how many it was and how many years they went in the early 2000s. Was it
I
6 and
think-
8 or was it
I think they won 6 of 7.
6 of 7?
I think they were interrupted. One year, I think Olathe South went there like
And
99 or
lost.
something like that,
Yeah.
and then lost. Then they got back, and then yeah, I think it was, I want to say it was 6 of 7. Gene Weir 6-0 in state championship games. Joel Appleby 6-0 in state championship games. They now coach together. Almost.
I think McCall won the other one. Did McCall win one at Olathe North?
So yeah, he won one the year after, I believe, Weir left.
Okay. And then Pete Flood won the other one in 2009. So
Yep.
little
So-
Olathe North history. That's coming back to us.
Yeah, it's
Rattled
4
the
in a row and
cage.
6 of 8 overall for Mill Valley. It's a heck of a run. It's fun to be a part of. All right, down to 4A, you had a game Wamego team keeping up with Blue Valley. Bishop Miege, keeping up with Miege for about 2 or 3 quarters here before their talent finally took over and they got back on top, winning state.
And a telling quote from John Holmes when he came on my radio show, and not in an arrogant way. He said that was one of the first times they'd been in a state championship game with a team that wanted to be there and wanted to play in that and was ready to take them on.
I bet they loved it.
No fear. And he said that was great. He had nothing but prayer. And I did an interview with Weston Moody last week, and he was fantastic. And he's building a great program out there at Wamego. That's a team I'm going to be watching going forward. And it's a lot like, if the Catholics do move up, I could see some Wamego Eudora, Wamego Lewisburg, just battles going down the line. And hey, who's to say that Wamego's not battling if the Catholics don't go up? Next year they won't.
I think the Catholics. I think they've. Was the tide raises all ships? I think we've seen much more competition over these last few years from the West Side in 4A.
Well, and I think you look at what the run that Aquinas and Miege and even St. James had to go through to get Miege to that game. They beat Eudora by 1 score.
Absolutely, yep. And tight.
And Piper beats Chanute, and Lewisburg had a tough game against Aquinas, but they were in that mix as well. St. James had to play Baser in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's where the depth of that is. And so when you talk to Coach Holmes, he's like, it's definitely one of the most difficult runs they've had to do to get there. Beat Aquinas again, to beat Eudora, and in that game, which was crazy game in Eudora. And if Eudora needed maybe 3 more bodies that weren't going both ways, then they may have had them. They may have had them. But no, it's exciting for 4A football for where it is now. And even if the Catholics do move up, I think it says a lot about 4A football, where you've got teams like Wamego and Eudora and Lewisburg and Piper and all those teams that are like, hey, we're here to play whoever we want to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the next year they'll still be down there, right? One more year at least.
2-year cycle.
4A, we'll see what happens with the next 2-year cycle. But hats off to John Holmes. That's their 11th state title, and I believe that breaks the record, right? That's the most. I think that they were tied with Smith Center and Lawrence at 10. I think it's all Miege now.
Yeah, and they did a lot of that heavy lifting in the last decade.
Yeah, they got a lot. What is that? I mean, since
7 and 9 seasons.
7 of 9. That's a run right there.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Mill Valley's run in 5A. They won 6, right? 6 in a row. Before.
Well, and they've won 7 and 9 and
back.
really 10 in 13 years because the 2009 title under Bernard. And they mixed in a Class 5 championship game in 2012 where they lost to, I think, Bishop Carroll in 5A. So yeah, they've been there a ton. And
well, and then and this year, I mean, Miege was one of the best teams in the city, bar none, right? And no matter what class, what state. I mean, I think they were. I think they proved themselves to be the best out of the EKL this year. And when you're the best out of the EKL, you're one of the best in Kansas City and in the state, and they proved it. So, and by the way, they won a couple Simone Awards this week as well.
Yes, they did.
That later on in the show. Up in 6A, man, just a heartbreaker. I finally watched the overtime, the last kind of quarter where Manhattan had to come back just to tie it, to send it into overtime. And then Gardner went for it, man. They went for it. They pulled a couple offensive linemen. They just flooded the left side, and they said, we're going to get the end zone. I feel like if they would have maybe a couple more yards outside, beyond the sideline, they could have gotten to that pylon, and they came up this close. I know it's crushing, but what a game and what a season for Gardner.
Yes, and as that game wound down, I got off Twitter because the stream was behind Twitter, and I didn't want to find out what was going on. So I'm watching the stream, and my poor wife needed something, and so she called me once, and every time it goes through my computer, so cuts the stream down and pops up the phone, and I declined it and got back to the game, got it going again like that. And she did it again just right as they, and I declined it again and then saw the last play. And needless to say, I was into that game.
Yeah.
So I was like a little crazy when I got upstairs to find out what she needed. So there was a little bit of drama on that, but no, it's a great game. They had some fumbles. I know they'd love to have back, and they really dominated Manhattan the first quarter and a half of that game. And Manhattan won the game. They're the state champion. I don't know if they're the better team. Yeah. I think they were able to capitalize on some mistakes in this game. So it's tough for Gardner, but they've got to look back and just be thrilled with what they've done and what they can do, because now they bring back a ton of experience.
Sophomore quarterback and our junior running back and Dawson Kindler. They're returning.
Well, Manhattan had adjusted because Dawson Kindler was killing them with the dive.
Yeah.
In the first half, and they
said 40 times, which is like a regular Friday or Saturday for Kindler for 128 yards.
Yeah, but he was 5 to 6 yards a clip.
Yeah, that's the whole deal. That yard for carry there is a killer, right? 40 for 120. You're basically getting 3 or 4 yards every time, right? And it's not like, okay, well, he got a big gainer here, but we threw him for a loss a couple times in a row. It was just.
It's always straight ahead. It's always straight ahead. But no, I think that Coach Owen and that staff has done a fantastic job. It's a great town. They love their football. They love their sports. There's all kinds of great community support there. I think that Gardner Edgerton has cemented themselves as a player in 6A, and it's going to be a fun year next year in Sunflower League and in 6A, because I think we go into I think they go in as a favorite, but there's still a lot of teams that are going to be in that mix as well.
A good year for the Sunflower League. Really good year. You had 2 in the semifinals in 6A. You had Mill Valley right there winning it in 5A. Good overall year for that that league. All right, let's jump over to Missouri here, and another just overtime heartbreaker, and another game, Dion, where you have the losing team, this time Lee Summit North's having a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas.
Yeah, and really both those teams. I had my partner Brian. He was on his way back from vacation. He's like, was the Lee Summit North a good game? And I go, well, good in the sense that it was overtime and exciting in that sense. I said, I don't think they're sending that film to the Hall of Fame anytime soon with 31 combined penalties and 330 penalty yards. But that was back and forth. Their best players made plays on both sides of the ball. Love for CBC made plays. Elijah Leonard had a game of his life, over 400 yards passing. Isaiah Mosey. That's one of my takeaways from that game. Is that kid's really good, and he's going to be really good because he's only a sophomore. Had a big game for them, and Lee Summit North has arrived. I mean, they got to the state championship game, win or lose. They are among the elites, and now they've got to kind of stay on top of that mountain, because the problem for them is that Liberty North's still there, Ray Peck is still there, and those are teams that have played for and won championships. And oh, by the way, the Blue Springs Souths, and Rockhurst are getting back in the mix, which is great for us here in Kansas City. It just makes it tougher for we may be diving back into the time where we'd send a team to the state championship game and they'd lose because they were so beaten up, and a CBC or somebody like that was fresh and good. So it's going to be tough, but I think that hats off to Coach Mosey and that entire staff and what they've done there for a program that they took over that had no history of any type of postseason success at all.
Another game too where Lee Summit North was up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and CBC not only needed a touchdown to come back in time, but a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. They end up getting it going into overtime, and CBC is the only team to score in OT.
Yeah, it was they had a chance there at the end with a field goal, and it didn't work out. They had 2 shots at it, and it's it's tough, and it's not that kid's fault. I mean, there's in a game with 31 penalties and 300 yards, there's not. Everyone can raise their hand and say, I could have done better, or it's not my fault. It's everyone's. It's definitely a combined team win and or loss. But the effort was so fantastic. Those kids left it out on the field.
Absolutely.
And I watched all that, and it was just they answered the bell, and CBC answered the bell, and it was back and forth, and there was some high tension there. I'm talking to a buddy of mine from St. Louis, who's a St. Louis guy, who thinks that Love from CBC should have been kicked out after his personal foul from what happened. And I will say this, I had it on in the background, so I was listening to it as much. I would flip in and out as I was editing video and doing other things from the other games that were played during the day. But no, it was a fun game in that sense, and both teams it was really fun to watch.
Down in Class 4, Smithville loses 37-23 to St. Mary's. I don't know if Smithville given up 37 points all season long. Must be an outstanding St. Mary's offense to do that to the defending champs.
Just kind of wore them out. I mean, Smithville had an early lead. I think it was 16-0, and then just were up 23-7, and then didn't really score again. And St. Mary's wore them out. And that's a St. Mary's team that is a defending Class 3 state champion. Brought a lot of players back to that team. Not their top end guy.
There were 2 state champs in that game.
Yeah, 2 state. You don't get 2 state champs in the semifinal that often, or state championship game that often. And then Smithville, I'm sure they're disappointed, but with as many starters as they had to replace coming into this year, if you just said, "Hey, you had a lead late in the third quarter of a semifinal game against St. Mary's, a defending state champion," they probably would have taken it. But they were close enough again. That's 3 straight semifinals. They lost a close one to Helias a few years ago, late in the fourth quarter. This one kind of got away from them, but that's a good St. Mary's team, and that's a good Smithville team. So it's disappointing, but hats off to them. And I think that probably was the state championship game, because St. Mary's is going to play St. Dominic team. I think they beat by 4 or 5 touchdowns the first time around. That's the bracket in Missouri, because it rotates around. You don't get the split like you do in Kansas. So it's sometimes the state championship game is played the week before.
Yep. Cardinal Ritter takes care of Pleasant Hill. Great season for the Roosters. They finished in the semifinals, 11-2 on the year, 54-35 Cardinal Ritter in a shootout.
Yeah, they just too many big plays by Cardinal Ritter, and they got Pleasant Hill. Coach Wamsgons does my show me. He went to 2 Pleasant Hill games. Probably they won't ask him back. He went to the Center game and he went to the Cardinal Ritter game. And he said it just looked very similar. The things that gave Pleasant Hill problems with Center, Cardinal Ritter was the same way. And he goes, I wonder if Center, because Center and Pleasant Hill are both kind of in that mix, right at the top of 3 and bottom of 4. He goes, if Center was down in 3, I think maybe they match up with Cardinal Ritter. It's just, but the thing, if you're a Pleasant Hill fan, I know you're disappointed. You want to have a chance to go to the state championship. First semifinals in 75. And they've never won a state title. They went to the state championship game in 74. So they're back-to-back semifinals. But this program was 0-10 4 years ago. These seniors were 0-10 when they were freshmen. And Justin Hamilton was hired the next year. I think they won 3 games their sophomore year. They won 7 or 8 last year, went on that late season run. And then this year, they roll through the MRVC West with the exception of Center, and are one of the better teams. So that says a lot about the coaching staff, a lot about those players and those kids. Be able to put that 0-10 season behind them and come out and work, and their numbers are up. Everything is, I think Pleasant Hill is a force to be reckoned with going down the line. It's always had good players, and I think that they've got a chance to really break through now.
All right, down in Class 1, we got it. We asked for it, Dion. We got it. In all Kansas City area, Class 1 final is going to be East Buchanan looking to go back-to-back in Class 1, and Adrian getting through. Size up this matchup coming up this weekend.
Adrian, the Fighting Cole Youngs. The funny thing about
Cole from there? Nice.
Yes, he graduated from Adrian, and he is their PA announcer. So he got a little extra work, and his son Dawson helped with the music at times in the blowout games this year. So I think what you're seeing is the Class 1 football, when they took Valley Catholic out, that kind of removed, when they got bumped up to Class 3, that kind of removed the elephant in the room, much like we talk about. And you see some of these teams. East Buchanan looked great last week. Trevor Klein had 6 touchdowns. Their defense, which has been kind of carrying through some tough games in the playoffs, played really well again, and then their offense just exploded. And so they look like a defending state champ. Their only loss is to Savannah by like 3 points earlier in the year. A good Class 3 Savannah. Yeah, 2 classes bigger. Adrian lost 2 games. They lost to Lincoln early in the year. Lincoln's a team that throws it all over the yard, and that's kind of their kryptonite. They have a hard time stopping that. And then at the end of the season, they lost to Tipton with 3 of their best, 5 athletes out, which in Class 1, you drop 2 or 3 athletes.
That could be the team, man. Absolutely.
It's a game changer. It's going to be a fun game because Adrian's got a lot of size up front, and they really kind of dominate that offensive line. And East Buchanan, who has good size and good players, but he said that that they know that the left-hand side of that Adrian line is really good. Coach Ritter up there, and then Coach Davis has done a great job down at Adrian. It's fun, and they are, Misha honors every team that won 20 years before. So Adrian people were already going to be at the game because they won
that's
the
cool.
state championship in 2002. I was talking to Jason West. He said before Adrian won, they had sold 68 tickets to the Adrian people to come down just for the little reunion of being honored by the state, which I guess in Class 1, I mean, think about it. There's like 30 guys on that team and 68 people are coming down, down for that game. And so I've already told Coach Davis and Cole that if there's some sort of robbery outbreak in Adrian at 3:00 on Saturday, tall guy, dark hair, wearing Preps KC shirt had nothing to do with it. So I'm not trying to encourage crime, but there's not going to be a lot of people in Adrian on Saturday, and there's not going to be a lot of people in Gower either on Saturday, because I think that East Buchanan travels well, and it's these two programs have been really good. I mean, Adrian was in the semifinals against Mid Buchanan a couple years ago, and it's fun. There's a lot of respect between the two of them. Coach Ritter is a Missouri Western guy. Coach Davis is a Pitt State guy, and he brought up the fact that when Coach Davis was at Pitt State, they'd won a national championship, but they beat Missouri Western really bad. But when Coach Ritter was at Missouri Western, they beat Pitt State. So he said, he goes, we got a little Pitt State Missouri Western going on. So those MIAA guys, they like it. But it's a lot of respect on both sides for both those teams. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Fort Osage, Francis Howell, that should be a lot of fun too. Can the Fort do it against a team that's just, Francis Howell is blown through the competition this year?
Yeah, and in 5 they were they were just right on that line, and they fell down. And Alan Wilmus, the coach at Blue Spring South, went to Francis Howell and coached at Francis Howell for a little bit before he moved out this way. We have a beveraged wagered back the hometown teams. We have he was doing the same thing I was doing, except I was working on Saturday. He was watching streams of games, and we were texting back and forth. And he said, no, he goes, he said, and I've got kind of backup on this from some of the St. Louis people. If Francis Howell was in Class 6, they'd be probably the second best Class 6 team. That he felt like they could beat DeSmet. So it's going to be a tough physical battle. It's going to be a tough game for Fort Osage, but they're kind of built this way, and they're playing fantastic football.
They are. They've just rolled in these playoffs. Yeah,
and they go to Cape Central. They were down 13-7 at one point. Cape Central decided they go ahead and punt to Lorenzo Fenner, and not just like let's try and get to the sideline. He runs over there and grabs it, picks it up, and makes a great play.
So line drive right down the middle.
Yeah, line drive down the middle. Just to the 45 to his 45-yard line, where all he has to do is find a gap, and go, and he's gone. And so he's had 3 straight games with return touchdowns.
Wow. Jeez.
And then, oh, by the way, they've got River Peppers, who's an outstanding sophomore tailback. Their other receivers have been playing great. Greg Minnie, their quarterback, who I had not seen him in person or even on video until about 5 weeks into the season. And our own Ryan Edwards went out the game. He's doing his post-game interviews. I know what Greg Minnie did in the offseason, because I asked Brock Bull, I said, did he have a couch or a bed there at the weight room? Because he looks more like their starting middle linebacker than their quarterback, and he's tough and he likes to initiate contact, and he's good. He's not gonna Sam Van Dyne you, and 24 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he's gonna get the ball to where it needs to go, and he's tough and physical. And there's a kid who had a tough end of last season. I mean, he fumbled the ball in the semifinal game, and he's come back and answered all, and is a leader and a good kid. And that team is big and physical, and they've got speed in the right spots. They're going up against a big physical Francis Howell team. The question is whose schedule got them better prepared for this game? And I tend to lean on Kansas City on that, but no, I think Fort's. I like them a lot in this game. Not big. I think it's gonna be a good close game, but if they could, the biggest thing for Fort is if they don't turn the ball over and give teams extra possessions and make their defense go out there a little more. When they're moving the chains and doing things, even if they don't score sometimes, their physicality will wear it. Now, Francis Howell matches their physicality, so it's going to be a fun game. It's been a long time since I felt like in Class 6 and Class 5, we ended up with the arguably, if not the top 2 teams, top two out of 3 teams that are tough and physical, and we could see another great game here. We've had, there's been a lot of years where 6, there's just been mismatches. Yeah, the semifinal game was better than the regular season game or the final game. So good game on Friday night. I think I'm looking forward to it.
All right, looking forward to the Simone Awards as well. It's coming up on Tuesday morning at a school TBA. We'll be there. We'll be streaming it on KSHB 41 on our OTT platforms, our streaming platforms. We'll tell you more about that, on the website as well as on air leading up to it. But also leading up to it, Dion, we've been revealing the winners of the other Simone Awards, 4 of them, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday, we revealed the Otis Taylor Award winner, and it was Isaiah Coppage. And what a season that guy had from Bishop Miege. And really, what a group. You mentioned Finner. I mean, that was a heck of a foursome of receivers up for the Taylor this year.
Yeah, and the final 4 were Isaiah, Finner, Josh Manning from Lee Summit is going to Mizzou, and then Jaden Riddell, who even if he had won, would not have been available to watch it on video because there was a picture of him shaking Nick Saban's hand in Tuscaloosa, Alabama on Monday afternoon. So that's where Jaden was.
That's where he's at.
Yeah. So that tells you the depth of that group. And Isaiah just had a great year and made plays, and he was so consistent in everything he did. And even, Coach Holmes said, even as the year went on and teams shut him down, he may only have 4 or 5 catches that week, but he would make the impact and do the things off the ball to help get other guys open.
Yeah. On Tuesday, we did the Bell. It's the small class lineman linebacker, best lineman linebacker in the small classes. And another good field, and you and I are talking maybe the upset of the Simone so far, and D-Rock Tafik from center.
Yeah, and I think Camden Beebe definitely had the name recognition.
Yeah,
given his own exploits.
His older brother was named Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year, like the day later.
And Colton, his oldest brother, is a 2-time winner of the Bobby Bell. So definitely a guy who had pedigree and had a great season. I think that's DeRock's win is a win of he had the numbers. A lot of times, if you go see somebody in person, or if you watch, some guys just jump off on film.
Mm-hmm.
And DeRock jumped off on film.
Yeah.
And he's not a small person.
Thick.
Playing middle linebacker, I mean, he looks more like a D tackle.
I agreed, yes.
Than a middle
especially
linebacker.
At the class, 4 level.
Mm-hmm. He looked like a D tackle, but his speed and his intelligence, oh, by the way, 4.3 grade point average.
Yeah.
Allowed him to go play middle linebacker. Yeah, speaks 4 languages. Goes by Harold.
Yeah.
Even though
it's an interesting cat, man.
And I when I talked with Coach DeLong about it, and he goes, "We tell him to go by DeRock. That's a way cooler name than Harold."
Yeah.
But he wants to have a name that everybody can say. And I told him, I was like, "Well, you can tell him I'm gonna call him DeRock because that's just I think it's a cool name." And I like Harold. Don't get me wrong, Harold's not a bad name. But no, good win for him, and that shows where center. Center had Joseph Vick as a finalist for the Bell Award as well. But no, DeRock was definitely in there with Braden Bush. From Pleasant Hill and so and Beebe, and it was a good group of finalists.
I think was
the
he was
Strickland.
Montana, sorry.
Strickland from Smithville. So good 4 finalists there.
Yep.
For those awards.
Fontana on Wednesday. I mean, look, somebody had to throw Isaiah Coppage the ball, and it was Mac Armstrong. He threw a lot of guys the ball. 39 touchdowns, over 3,800 yards in 13 games. State champion. I mean, he checked all the boxes, did Mac.
73% completion percentage.
73%.
And we're not talking 2-yard.
Yeah.
Cross the line, turn around, and get guys in space. They throw the ball downfield. They don't. I mean,
and it gets good competition too in the EKL. They played Rockhurst. I mean, we talked about the Amigo team they played.
Yeah, they definitely. He checked the boxes there, and another good field there with Hedgecorth and Bell or Vic. And so it's definitely and Sean Carroll, obviously from St. Thomas Aquinas, a good field in that one as well. That were the final 4, and Mac kind of came out of the box as the leader, I think, in most people's minds because people were talking about him early, and then other players stepped up and made there was a good ballot all the way around, and then I think in the end, driving through that state championship and finishing with those games that they had against those tough teams and the way he played really probably elevated him to that award.
And then the Buchanan, as we're taping it right now, we haven't revealed who the Buchanan winner is, Dion, but by the time this comes out, we will have, so we can talk about it. Melvin Laster from Liberty North, and no, this isn't a repeat of 2021. He's winning it again in 2022.
Yeah, and he just, edged out Caden Green for that. And man, what a group of players on that ballot. in that
And
Final
Caden Green's
Four.
up for the Simone as well.
And he's up for the Simone Award. He's a finalist for the Simone Award. And Edric Hill and PJ Adebayo from North Kansas City, the other two finalists. And, you know, our depth in that position has been good for a long time and is going to be good for a much longer time to come. We've got sophomore, you know, Melvin's just a junior. He's not going anywhere. We got some sophomore over from Mill Valley who's dominant, Jaden Woods.
Yep. He's the Kansas non-senior defensive player of the year, all classes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good young players coming too. So definitely a guy who didn't make the ballot from Lee Summit North, Williams Narni, I think is how you say his name. Outstanding D lineman for them. You know, so that's the one thing that if you're a Power 5 school, I think you can come to Kansas City and pick off 3-4 players every year. It seems
they're
like
learning now. Yeah,
we're definitely producing. That's one to keep an eye on. And Melvin wins that award again as a junior now.
Mm-hmm. And then the last but not least, of course, the Simones, the final 4 candidates there. You have Malik Oatis from Sandwich Northwest on the Kansas side with Caden Green, Lee Summit North. We talked about him. Kendrick Bell, the quarterback from Park Hill, and then Sam Van Dyne, quarterback from Liberty North. Yeah,
great group. And you see an offensive lineman in Caden Green make the move in there. And Malik Oatis says a lot about him. He only played 9 games.
Yeah.
I mean, they lost in the first round. And he had over 2,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. And, you know, that's a guy that was a senior on a very young team and made big steps there. And Sam Van Dyne, 24 touchdowns, no interceptions.
That's amazing.
I mean, he had like 1 or 2 going in the state championship game last year. I think he threw 4 in the state championship game. He didn't do that against CBC this time around. I mean, he was as good as he could be. They just didn't have enough to get CBC, but just an accurate guy. And you know, their offense didn't call for, they were very balanced through the most of the season. When Micah Joe Barnett went down, they had to throw the ball a little more, and he stepped it up in his game. He stepped right into that role, and his game got even better. On the flip side of it, Kendrick Bell, they were behind a lot of times or were in shootouts a lot of times, and he had to answer the bell and come out when teams know that's all they were going to do was throw the ball. And he's able to put up big numbers. And then Caden Green, funny story. I'm watching the state championship game, and Jim Powers and Bill Bayman, who are doing the color and play-by-play for Misha. Very nice guys. I've done games with both of them. They work hard, but sometimes when you're doing 6 classes of games, it's not easy always to be as informed as you may need to be. About midway through the second quarter, they're like noticing that Lee Summit North is really running over the left-hand side a lot.
Yeah.
Even if they're on the hash on the short side of the field, they're still going to the left. So I texted Jim and I go, that's because there's a guy named Caden Green over there who's like the number 5 guard in the country, who's been to, you know, all this other stuff like that. He went on the air and said, Dion from Preps KC has let us know that. So yeah, no, it's he was as impressive against anybody, you know, CBC had. And so that's, he's good against the best.
Yeah.
And that was really an outstanding season for him. So what a great, in a wide open year, we had really good candidates in almost all of our, in all of our categories. But, you know, we even filling out the 10 was tough to get to the ballot, and then the coaches and the media vote on that. And it's like 57 total people between coaches and media vote. Equally split on each side with the coaches. And so that's a good group, and we appreciate the work that the coaches put in. And here, I'll tell you, if you think these coaches just get a ballot, flip it back in, they don't. I heard from some that, you know, hey, you need to tell some of these kids they need to update their huddle film. I like what they did in the first 3 weeks. I want to see what they did.
Good.
They're, you know, the ones who aren't playing games sometimes are like, well, what am I going to do? I'll sit around Thanksgiving weekend. I'll watch some huddle film. So, you know, they really do work hard to try and get those votes as informed as they can. And no, it's fun. The ceremony is a great ceremony. We appreciate everything the Simones do. The McCarthy Auto Group, the presenting sponsor of that, they do a great job too. So it's going to be interesting. I know you have the interviews coming up with all the Simone winners. Yeah, we're going to feature each night, the next 4 nights before the award ceremony. We're going to feature one of the Simone Award finalists. And so I think we'll probably go in order on Friday night, start alphabetical order with Bell, and then we'll do Green, and then Oatis, and then Van Dyne. Yes, and for all of your viewers, you did a fantastic job in taking that away from me and letting your professionals do those interviews. You're welcome anytime. I know. We're going to go get it too, so that'll look better too. We're going and here's the thing. I will say this. One of my favorite interviews I did all of last year was Jet Deneen from a hotel room in Hutch at a basketball tournament. Basketball, yeah. Now, part of that's because Jet Deneen's a fun kid.
Yeah.
and that's, and that was a good deal in that. But it was kind of cool because they were like, they got in there and they hadn't had dinner. It was
That's
like
the whole
4
deal.
o'clock. Yeah.
We've yet to run into a kid on these 4 nights going into 5 that's not doing basketball or wrestling. They're just on to the next thing. It's good to see.
Yeah, no, and I mean, in fact, I was before we did this, I'm doing some basketball this weekend for Spectrum, and I was watching a stream of a tournament game.
Yeah,
and you see those kids out there that play football or playing. I like to see the kids wrestling too, and I think that's a great thing. I'm assuming is Duroc wrestle?
Yes, he does. Probably very well.
I'm gonna have to
Those
get out.
Two sports,
yes,
they kind of help each other out.
Hey, lineman, if you want to be better, wrestle.
Yeah,
Wrestle. The weight room's great, but wrestle, your footwork will be fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's fun to see the winter sports and see guys. Hey, that's the first place I saw Josh Manning in the flesh was on a basketball court at Blue Valley last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, receiver, you mean DN, right?
Yeah.
so yeah, no, it's a fun time of year. And hopefully we will cash in a couple more state championships this week.
Looking forward to it. Let's see, it's Fort Osage on Friday, right? And then
Friday night and then Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So yep, the Fort Osage gets to 7 o'clock in Columbia, and we'll have coverage between the two of us. And I've got my guy down there writing, and he'll have good photos, and you guys will get the highlights. And no more under the lights on Friday night, though.
No more under the lights, but we'll still have the highlights. Still have time. Still have inventory. And
it's a tough 15 weeks on the dog. I mean, it is.
Got to
keep him occupied. The bigger the rawhide I could get, just to keep him occupied. So he's outside right now. He was
made a couple appearances, I think, on the show.
He did. I think he saves himself for one. I'm going to walk behind Daddy while he's live on TV a year. So he gets in the shot a little bit and that kind of thing. And he didn't whine. Now we seem to figure out to keep the whining out this year, but we had to go to a morning for this podcast. But then on Friday nights, he wants to be a part of the show. There's no doubt. So,
all right, let's get out of here. We'll be back. We'll be back next week. We'll see after that. Dion wants to just do it year round. We'll see. After that.
We're gonna fit it in a mixed schedule. My schedule's wide open. Because they are people that I see that clamor for this podcast.
Yeah, well.
And and
then everything else.
Yes, but we don't even have to talk high school football year round.
Okay,
there's other things we can talk.
Oh yeah, I know there's a lot.
We talk some basketball.
Yep.
Talk football. We can talk Missouri basketball that's chosen to use point guards and score points this year. It's a strange.
Whatever.
Hey, it's the least you can watch them. Yeah. They're not unwatchable, so there's a lot of good things out there.
Yep. Awesome. We'll do it. We'll see you next time. Best of luck to all the Simone Award finalists out there and the two teams still playing for a state title. For Dion, I'm Nick. We'll see you next time right here on Snap Tackle Pod.